So we have discussed till rule number 5. I hope all the rules are clear to you now. So let's move ahead to rule number 6, which says that there are two pronouns which we have discussed in slide 2. Their names are what? Yes, tell me. Now let's move ahead to rule number 6. I hope you have understood all the 5 rules which we have done before this. So let's quickly revise them. So we have the subject pronoun and the object pronoun. So if it is a verb, before the verb you will have the subject, after the verb you will have the object pronoun. Fine. And if you are talking about the first person, second person, third person in the same sentence, in the bad situations or the negative situations, you will have first the second, then the third, and in the first you will have the first person, second person, and the third person. If you have a good situation, it should be second, third, and first person. And then if the next rule what we have discussed is, if you have a sentence which is starting with it, and after that you have a helping verb which is the form of to be or to have, and after that if you have a pronoun, that pronoun should be the subject pronoun. Fine. And we have the reflexive pronouns when the subject and the object are referring to the same person, then we call it as the subject pronoun. And the emphatic pronoun is used to emphasize on the doer of the action. Clear? So these 5 rules are clear to all of you. One more is there. Yeah, comparing the pronouns. So when you compare the pronouns, you can compare the like case. You can compare a subject to the subject. You can compare object to object. You cannot compare a subject to the object. Fine. So these are the 5 rules which we have discussed till now. Let's move ahead to the 6th rule, which is like in the very first or second slide we have discussed about the types of pronouns. I told you we have a distributive pronouns, and we will discuss in detail about the distributive pronouns in the later slide. So this is the slide where we are discussing about the distributive pronoun. That time I asked you to just learn the example like each other and one another. Right? They are pronouns. But when to use each other, when to use one another is little bit careful about them. Right? The first point which you should remember is when you are referring to only 2 things, that time you use the pronoun each other. But when you are referring to 3 or more, we will use one another. Clear? I'll repeat again. Only referring to 2 people, then we'll use one another. When we are referring to 3 or more things, we'll use one another. So each other refers to 2 and one other refers to more than 2. Right? Let's see them in example. The 2 brothers quarreled. Now here how many brothers are there? 2. They struck each other. Now they struck each other. So whom they have struck? They have struck each other. So this each other is referring to this noun phrase 2 brothers. Remember definition I said a pronoun is used for noun or a noun phrase. Here it is only 2, so we have used each other. Clear? Next sentence. The 3 brothers quarreled. They struck one another. Now here 3 brothers are there, more than 2. So we will use one another. Clear? Now have a look at the next example. Newly married couple. Couple means only 2 people, right? Danced with each other. Each other again used for only 2. So that is the correct form of the pronoun which they have used. After the test at ANC and Nair classes, the students discussed the paper with one another. Now here we are talking about students. There are more than 2. That means more than 2 students are there. So all those students have discussed the paper with one another. Clear? The next one. The players of the team competed with one another. So in a team definitely we have more than 2. More than 2 are there. So when more than 2 are there, then we will use one another. If only 2 are there, we'll use each other. So the point of this slide is we discussed all the previous 5 rules plus we have discussed one new rule. You want me to revise all the 5 before rules once again? See, subject, verb, object, the structure of the sentence. Before the verb we'll have the subject pronoun. After the verb we'll have the object pronoun. This is like I've cluttered, but try to understand. Number 2, when we are talking about the bad situation, then it will be first, second and third person. If it's a good situation, we'll talk about second, third and first person. Now after the verbs to be or to have, right? If the sentence is starting with it, after that you have to be or to have form of the verb, then the pronoun which comes immediately after that verb will be in the subject format. Reflexive pronouns, when the subject and the object are same, we'll use the reflexive pronouns. Next, distributive pronouns, when we are referring to two, we'll use each other. When we are referring to three or more, we'll use one another. Fine. I'm sure all of you are thorough with these rules. Remember them because they will help you to solve a lot of questions, right? And our aim is to get maximum number of questions correct. And this is possible only when you understand the rules and the concepts very clearly. Next one. Now to avoid the repetition of a singular noun, remember we have discussed about the demonstrative pronouns. What are the examples we discussed? I divided them also into singular and the plural forms. Now, singular, this is singular, that is also, this is singular, that is also singular. These and those are the plural forms, right? So these demonstrative pronouns, if you're referring to the singular noun, right, which is far away, we'll use that. If you're referring to a plural noun, you'll use those. Very simple. If you know this, that, these, those, that this is singular, that is also singular, these and those are plural. This is for the nearby things and that is all for that and those are for the far away things. That's the only difference, but this, that singular, these, those, plurals. If you're referring to singular things, then you use this and that. If you're referring to plural, then you'll use these and those. If you're referring to nearby things, we'll use this and these. If you're referring to far away things, so remember that also. There's no harm in learning. So this and these is for nearby. That and those are for far away things. Those concepts, whatever we did in the slides where we were discussing about the kinds of pronouns, that only we are little elaborating and they are putting it like a rule over here, right? This is something which we've already learned. You know it. For the singular things, you have to use the pronoun that. For the plural things, you have to use those. Clear? Now, let's have them in the example. The population of China is more than the population of India. Now, you don't want to use the word population again, right? And the population of China and India are very far away. Remember, they are not very closely placed. So, what we are using, the population of the population of China is more than that of India. So now instead of using the word the population, what we have used the phrase pronoun that, because they are referring to singular thing, and the population is singular, right? Remember, TION. We have learned this in the noun chapter that anything which ends with shan is always singular. Collective noun used as singular. So that is why we are using that. Don't think that population, lot of people are there. Yes, lot of people are there, but collectively that is called as the singular noun. So when you are referring to a singular noun, then you have to use that only. And why we are using that? Because we are referring to a far away thing, right? Now next you see, students of ANC are far better than the students of any other center, right? The students are many students over here. More than one students, plural noun. So when we are referring to the plural noun the students, we will use the pronoun those. So if I want to remove this, I should remove because it's repetition of noun over here. So to avoid the repetition of the noun, we should use pronouns. So how the sentence will become? The students of ANC are better than those of any other center. ANC is Anil, Nair classes, and they are, right? I'm not just saying like that, you know. Fine, let's move ahead to the next slide. So, relative pronouns. Now, what are those relative pronouns? I told you the example: who, which, that, whose, whom, right? These are all your relative pronouns. They are used to tell us more about a person or a thing. Like these are the examples, right? Who, whom, that, which, whose. Now let's see the example. My mother, who was a working woman in the 60s, is an extremely hard-working lady. Now the word who over here is telling me something more about the word mother, right? It's a pronoun, but it is giving me joining the word mother with another phrase over here, group of words, that she was a working woman in 60s. She is a extremely hardworking ladies. So I just said my mother is an extremely hardworking lady, fine. But how? What is the proof over here? What exactly the information I'm giving to support that, right? Or telling me more about my mother is that she was a working woman back in 60s also, right? And how this information is joined? It is joined with the help of who. And again, however I'm telling you this, that is fine. But you remember that the same word who could be used as an interrogative pronoun also. If I say, who are you? I'm asking a question. Now in this sentence, who is an interrogative pronoun? So don't get confused. Ravi Sharma, who is 62, has just retired. So now the word 62, what is the connection between Ravi Sharma and 62? That Ravi Sharma's age is 62. Now which word is helping me to know that? So the word who is a pronoun, a relative pronoun, is showing me the connection between the noun Ravi Sharma and his age 62, that Ravi Verma retired at the age of 62 only. Fine. Now this is the artist whose paintings sell for millions in the international market. Now here we have whose is a relative pronoun over here. Now what is whose doing? It's showing me the connectivity or relationship between the artist and the paintings. So this word whose helps me to know that these paintings belongs to this particular artist. This artist has actually painted these. So these paintings belongs to artist. This particular artist. Whose is showing me the connection between the two. So it's a relative pronoun. Now if I say whose paintings are these? I'm asking a question. So here in this particular example, whose is a interrogative pronoun. So don't get confused. I again say, I've been saying from my very first lecture that we are learning grammar. We are trying to understand the grammar in terms of functional concept, right? In your competitive exam, nobody will ask you to give the definition. Okay, fine, give me the definition of relative pronoun. Give me the definition of demonstrative pronouns. All that you have learned in your primary school level, right? But now all of you are grown up. You are applying for job, right? You want to go and work somewhere. That's the reason you are applying for, like you're going to take some competitive exams. No matter which exam it is, they are going to test this grammar in terms of functional aspect. Whether you are able to identify the difference, or like when parrot you are learning who, what, whose, you have learned as the example of interrogative. So fine, they are always going to be interrogative. No. They are relative pronouns also, they are interrogative pronouns also. In context to the sentence, what that sentence, that word is doing, what is the function, whether it is showing the relationship between a noun or a pronoun and another group of the words, or is it helping me to ask a question. If it is showing the relationship, then it's a relative pronoun. If it is helping me to ask the question, then it's an interrogative pronoun. I hope the point of this slide is clear to all of you. Yeah? Fine. Let's move ahead to the next slide. Till rule number 8, all of you are thorough. Yes? Yes. Now, who and whom, they are also relative pronouns. Now, this also majority of people will make mistakes. Now, who is the subject pronoun? Always remember, who is the subject pronoun and whom is the object pronoun. Nothing else. No if and but. Who is subject, whom is object. That's it. Now, if it is a subject, who will always be placed before a verb. So, remember the first point. Who always before the verb. We've already done, right? That subject will always be before the verb. Remember that equation which I told you will have the subject, verb and object. Been teaching you from the very first slide. So verb, before the verb you will have the subject, right? And after the verb will have the object. Yes? Remember this. This is the key point. This is always very important equation you can say, right? So if who is there, who will always be before the verb. And it is always used as the subject pronoun. Whom is always used as the object pronoun. It could be the object of a preposition or object of, right? It will always be the object of preposition. Second one, whom will always be after preposition. Fine. Or after verb, because it will always be functioning as the object. That is the only thing. But both of them, they will refer to people, right? They will never refer to anything or something. They'll only refer to persons or people. Now let's see the examples. He is the man whom the police arrested last night. So is the verb. Who is the man? He. He is who? He is the man. Right? The man whom. Whom is placed where? It is placed after the verb. And here it is acting as the relative pronoun. And it is showing me the relationship between the he and the police, the act of getting arrested by the police. Right? Showing this connectivity, and where it is placed. Observe, I told you it will always be after the verb, right? Either it will be after the verb or after a preposition. See here how beautifully it is placed after the verb only. Because it's an object pronoun, it's not the subject pronoun. Next sentence. Mrs. Gupta, who works as a clergy in my office, is on leave. So now here, works as a clergy. So now who works, who is the showing the connectivity between the Mrs. Gupta and working, right? So here who is used as a relative pronoun. Clear? So that's why it is there before works. Who works? Mrs. Gupta works. As what? As a clergy in my office, is on leave, right? So this is one thing, like when it is acting as a relative pronoun, right? Then it could be the subject also. Fine. Let's move ahead to the next slide. Now which or that when we talk about the things, not people. So for which and that we are talking about the things. Now this is the watch which my husband bought for me. So now here which is referring to what? Watch. And watch is a thing, right? That is why you have used which. Fine. Next, let's move ahead to the next slide. Use whose to show the possessive pronoun. We already know whose is a possessive pronoun. Now Ravi, whose brother is a politician, manages to get all the government contacts. So whose brother? Brother whose is telling me something more about the ownership of the brother, that this brother belongs to Ravi. Clear? Let's move ahead to the next slide. That is used if the antecedent is a person and the superlative degree is used. Now we remember we discussed about which and that, right? Now how to decide that whether I have to use which or I have to use that. Now for that, if the antecedent is a noun to which your pronoun refers, it's referring to a person and that person also is having a superlative degree. And that time only we'll use the that. Now, the most beautiful woman, this is in the superlative degree, the most beautiful, that I have ever met. So, now that is referring to a person. Now, if that person is in the superlative degree, then only I am talking about that. And the previous slide we have discussed that which and that refers to people, right? But in that also there is some exception. It's an exception to that rule which we have discussed previous. That when that can be used for the person. person. If that person is in the superlative degree, then we will use the word that. See, Mrs. Gupta is the most efficient teacher. So now the most efficient teacher is the superlative degree adjectives. So these adjectives, the most efficient teacher, which is a noun. Now that is placed before the noun which is present in the superlative degree. That is why we are using that over here. So Mrs. Gupta is the most efficient teacher. That teaches maths to the senior section. Why we have used that? Because it is referring to the teacher who is in the having the superlative degree of adjectives, the most efficient teacher. Clear? Let's move ahead. It's an exception. Rest all the cases that will be used for things. Clear? Now, if all is used for persons, the relative pronoun will be who. Now, let's remember, if all is there and it is referring to persons, then the relative pronoun which you will use will be who. Now, if all is referring to things, it's referring to things, then the relative pronouns which you will be using will be that. Remember? And it goes back to that same thing. Who refers to people, that refers to thing. But there are certain exceptions also. So you have to learn them like rules, right? So let's see. Who, all who are appearing for exam on Sunday should inform the principal right now. Now all over here is referring to whom? So it's referring to persons or people who are appearing for exam. Things cannot give exam, right? People only can give exams. So that is the reason we have used who over here. Clear? Now all that appears before the eyes need not necessarily be true. So now appears before the eyes. Now people is there. Here what we are talking about in context. Yes, of course I know people also can appear before our eyes. But in this sentence we are referring to things or the concepts which are appearing before our eyes. That is why we have used that to refer to all. Now all that they did for the marriage preparations. So now here this all is referring for all the things which they have done for the marriage preparations. Preparations is what? It's things, right? Not referring to people. That is why we have used that over here. It's things. Clear? So very simple. The point of this slide is, if all is used as a pronoun and if that all is referring to people or person, right, then we can use who. If all is referring to things, we will use that. Clear? Let's move ahead to the next slide. Now relative pronoun that, many things are there, is used with everything, nothing, the only, any, all, everyone, none, nobody, much, the same, little, the few, etc. So these are the words. With them the word pronoun that will be used. This that we already have learned so much about it. So they'll ask you the question, they will say either that or something else. But if this that is present along with everything, nothing, though, only, all, everyone, none, nobody, much, same, little, few, then we have to use that only. This is the only branded shirt that I have. So now how superlative degree is only one. So here only also is referring to only one, right? That is why I have used that. The little rain that took place was the great help to the farmers. Now here that is referring to the little rain, right? So that is why this that is there. Clear? Let's move ahead to the थोड़ा याद करना पड़ेगा. You have to memorize this, right? Read this slide, go through this slide, this concept at least in a week, at least 3 times. If you will read, that will be sufficient. But don't read at a time, only sit and reading the 3 times. No, that way it doesn't help. Let's move ahead to the next slide. Now we have the possessive pronoun like mine, ours, yours, his, hers, and theirs. Now they will never be used directly before the nouns. Possessive adjectives will be used. Another set of possessive adjectives are there. Will be used before the noun directly, like my, yours. So I told you, like if you have, you can say my book, our book, your book, her book, their book. These are all the possessive pronouns. But when I say this is dash, so here whatever the words you can put, these are the possessive pronouns. Like this book is mine, this book is yours, this book is his, this book is hers, this book is theirs, this book is ours. So they will always be coming after the verb. But when I say book and then I'm filling the blank before the book, I can say this is my book, right? This is your book, this is his book, this is their book, this is our book. We've already done it in the first slides. So his is used as a possessive pronoun as well as the possessive adjective. Now, her house is located in sector 13 in Hisar. Now, can you say hers house? No. You will just say her house. Because it's a noun. Before the noun, if you're using the possessive adjectives, then it will be her. So, when they are used before the noun, we call them as the possessive adjectives. But if they are used after the verb, then we just call them as possessive pronouns. So, her house. So, here you see how beautifully we understood the concept that here the her is a pronoun. It's a possessive pronoun, but it is functioning as possessive adjective. Theirs father. So, father is a noun. Before the father, if you are putting a possessive pronoun, it cannot be theirs. It has to be their. We need a possessive adjective over here. Their father works in bank. That is fine. We cannot say theirs because theirs will come after the verb. Clear? Do not use apostrophe with the possessive adjective. Now, something which you have learnt in your primary school when we used to write applications, yours faithfully. And our teachers always used to say this is wrong. The correct form is yours, right? Yours, theirs. See, ours, hers. We are putting a S after them. But that doesn't mean that we'll put the apostrophe plus S, because apostrophe plus S, the use of this apostrophe plus S is to what? To show the possessiveness, right? Or the ownership, right? For this only we use the apostrophe plus S. But now what exactly is the name of these pronouns? The names of these pronouns are the possessive adjectives or the possessives, right? So these are possessive pronouns. They are themselves. The word itself is saying the possessiveness. Why exactly you will put apostrophe plus S and then show double possessiveness? Not necessary. Somebody's ownership will remain ownership only. By saying twice, it will just be wrong grammatically. That's called redundancy. That is why we cannot put it. Because they themselves are possessive adjectives. The name itself says that they are showing the ownership. We don't need the help of apostrophe plus S to show the possessive case. Clear? Fine. Let's move ahead to the next slide. Now, if one is used as the subject of the sentence, then once and oneself will be used in the sentence and not him and himself. Yes, of course. One is, if in one sentence you have used one, throughout the sentence, whatever the pronoun is referring to, that one is always be one. Like one, one's book, right? Or oneself. We cannot say one in the first part and the second suddenly we cannot shift to his or him, right? Or himself. If you're using he, then you can use he, his, him, himself. If one is there, then you have to use oneself. One should finish one's work in time. If you put here either you or his, all this is wrong. You have to just use one's work only, one to one. Consistency. I told you, always I tell you, consistency is very important. Clear? Now, this finishes the rules related to our pronouns. So, always remember, pronoun also can act as the subject or the object. So, we have to look into the subject-verb agreement. Consistency of the pronoun to the noun which they refers is very important. So, that is why noun-pronoun agreement also we will be sure of, right? We have to make sure that a pronoun must agree with the noun to which it refers to in terms of case, number and gender. Clear? So this is all about the rules related to pronouns. Now we will do in the next slide onwards, we'll start doing some questions related to our pronouns. Fine? Great. Thanks.
You can learn any subject, anywhere, any place, and on the go. Come, let us go the other way in learning. Download our revolutionary app for free. ANC.